said that nothing would be done till he returned, because the village wished him to kill the Jungle Boy first. They did not happen to have seen anything of such a creature. The charcoal burners looked round cautiously, and thanked their stars that they had not. But they had no doubt that so brave a man as Buldu would find him if anyone could. The sun was getting rather low, and they had an idea that they would push on to Buldu's village and see that wicked witch. Buldu said that, though it was his duty to kill the devil child, he could not think of letting a party of unarmed men go through the jungle, which might produce the wolf demon at any minute, without his escort. He therefore would accompany them, and if the sorcerer's child appeared, well, he would show them how the best hunter in Sioni dealt with such things. "What says he?" the wolves asked Mowgli every few minutes, and Mowgli translated until he came to the witch part of the story, which was a little beyond him, and then he said that the man and woman who'd been so kind to him were trapped. "Does man trap man?" said Bagheera. "So he says. I cannot understand the talk. I must look to this. Whatever they would do to Meswa, they will not do till Buldu returns. I go hot foot back to the man pack." "And those?" said Grey Brother, looking hungrily after the brown backs of the charcoal burners. "Sing them home," said Mowgli with a grin. "I do not wish them to be at the village gates till it is dark. Sing to them, lest they be lonely on the road, and, Grey Brother, the song need not be of the sweetest. Go with them, Bagheera, and help make that song. When night is shut down, meet me by the village. Grey Brother knows the place." Bagheera lowered his head so that the sound would travel, and cried a long, long, "Good hunting," a midnight call in the afternoon. Mowgli heard it rumble and rise and fall and die off in a creepy sort of whine behind him, and laughed to himself as he ran through the jungle. He could see the charcoal burners huddled in a knot, old Buldu's gun barrel waving like a banana leaf to every point of the compass at once. It was twilight when he saw the well-remembered grazing ground and the dak tree where Grey Brother had waited for him on the morning that he killed Shere Khan. Angry as he was at the whole breed and community of man, something jumped up in his throat and made him catch his breath when he looked at the village roofs. He noticed that everyone had come in from the fields unusually early, and that, instead of getting to their evening cooking, they gathered in a crowd under the village tree and chattered and shouted. He crept along outside the wall till he came to Meswa's hut and looked through the window into the room. There lay Meswa, gagged and bound hand and foot, breathing hard and groaning. Her husband was tied to the bedstead. So he went in through the window, and stooping over the man and woman, cut their thongs and pulled out their gags. Meswa was half wild with pain and fear, and Mowgli put his hand over her mouth, just in time to stop a scream. "Oh, I knew he would come," she sobbed at last, and she hugged Mowgli to her heart. "Why are these thongs? Why have they tied thee?" he asked. "To be put to the death for making a son of thee. What else?" said the man sullenly. "Look, I bleed." Meswa said nothing, but it was at her wounds that Mowgli looked, and they heard him grit his teeth when he saw the blood. "Whose work is this?" said he. "There is a price to pay." "Because thou wast my son," said Meswa timidly, "whom the tiger took, and because I loved thee very dearly. They said that I was the mother of a devil, and therefore worthy of death." "Yonder is the road to the jungle," said Mowgli, pointing through the window. "Your hands and feet are free. Go now." "We do not know the jungle," Meswa said. "I do not think that I could walk far." "And the men and women would be upon our backs and drag us here again," said the husband. "I have no wish to do harm to anyone of this village," said Mowgli, "but I do not think they will stay thee. In a little while they will have much else to think upon." "Ah." He lifted his head and listened to shouting and trampling outside. So they've let Buldu come home at last. He was sent out to kill thee, Meswa cried. Didst thou meet him? Oh, yes, I met him. He has a tale to tell, and while he's telling it, there is time to do much. Think where ye may go. Kaniwara is 30 miles from here, said Meswa. But there we may find the English. And what pack are they? Asked Mowgli. I do not know. They be white, and it is said that they govern all the land, and do not suffer people to burn or beat each other without witnesses. If we can get thither tonight, we live. Otherwise we die. Live, then. No man passes the gates tonight. Mowgli helped Meswa through the window, and the cool night air revived her. But the jungle in the starlight looked very dark and terrible. Remember now not to be afraid, and there is no need to go quickly, but there may be some small singing in the jungle behind you and before. However, not a tooth in the jungle will be bared against you. Neither man nor beast shall stay you till you come within eye-shot of Kaniwara. Mowgli glanced at the man and said to Meswa, He does not believe. He will be afraid when he hears my people singing. Thou wilt know and understand. Go now. Meswa and her husband crept away towards the jungle, and as Meswa urged her husband forward and the darkness shut down on them, Bagheera rose up, almost under Mowgli's feet, trembling with delight of the night that drives the jungle people wild. Is it killing at last? He whispered as he climbed softly through the window. Mowgli gentled the panther for a few minutes, and Bagheera lay down like a cat before a fire, his eyes half shut. They're very long at their talk under the tree, Mowgli said. Buldu must have told many tales. They should come soon to drag the woman and her man out of the trap and put them into the red flower. They will find that trap sprung. Let them find me here, said Bagheera. I do not think they will tie me with cords. Mowgli heard the strings of the cot creak under the great brute's weight. By the broken lock that freed me, they will think they've caught big game. Come and sit beside me, little brother. We will give them good hunting together. No, I have another thought in my stomach. The man-pack shall not know what share I have in the sport. Make thine own hunt. I do not wish to see them. Be it so, said Bagheera as Mowgli crept out through the window. Oh, now they come. The conference under the peepul tree had been growing noisier and noisier at the far end of the village. It broke in wild yells and a rush up the street of men and women waving clubs and bamboos and sickles. Buldu and the Brahmin were at the head of it, but the mob was close at their heels, and they cried, The witch and the wizard! Let us see if hot coins will make them confess! Burn the hut over their heads! We will teach them to shelter wolf devils! The catch of the door had been very firmly fastened, but the crowd tore it away bodily, and the light of the torches streamed into the room where, stretched at full length on the bed, black as the pit, and terrible as a demon, lay Bagheera. There was 1/2 minute of desperate silence, as the front ranks of the crowd clawed and tore their way back from the threshold, and in that minute Bagheera raised his head and yawned, elaborately, as he would yawn when he wished to insult an equal. Next instant, the street was empty. Bagheera had leaped back through the window and stood at Mowgli's side while a yelling, screaming torrent scrambled and tumbled one over another in their panic haste to get to their own huts. They could hear the sound of heavy grain boxes being dragged over earthen floors and set down against doors. They will not stir till day comes, said Bagheera quietly. Now, little brother, there is nothing more to do. The man and woman will not be put into the red flower, and all goes well in the jungle. Come hunting with me and Baloo. He has new hives that he wishes to show, and we all desire thee back again, as of old. Let us forget the man-pack. They shall be forgotten in a little while. Where does Hutty the wild elephant feed tonight? chooses. Who can answer for the Silent One? But why? What is there Hati can do which we cannot? Bid him and his 3 sons come here to me. But indeed, little brother, it is not seemly to say come and go to Hati. Remember, he is the master of the jungle, and before the man-pack changed the look on thy face, he taught thee the master words of the jungle. That is all one. I have a master word for him now. Bid him come to Mowgli the frog, and if he does not hear at first, bid him come because of the sack of the fields of Burt-Por. The sack of the fields of Burt-Por, Bagheera repeated 2 or 3 times to make sure. I go. Hati can but be angry at the worst, and I would give a moon's hunting to hear a master word that compels the Silent One. It was a master word. Bagheera was whispering in his ear. They were feeding by the river, and they obeyed as though they were bullocks. Look where they come now. Hati and his 3 sons had arrived, in their usual way, without a sound. The mud of the river was still fresh on their flanks, and Hati was thoughtfully chewing the green stem of a young plantain tree that he'd gouged up with his tusks. When Mowgli spoke, it was to Bagheera, and not to the elephants, that he addressed his remarks. I will tell a tale that was told to me by the hunter ye hunted today, said Mowgli. It concerns an elephant, old and wise, who fell into a trap, and the sharpened stake in the pit scarred him from a little above his head to the crest of his shoulder, leaving a white mark. Mowgli threw out his hand, and as Hati wheeled in the moonlight, a long white scar on his slaty side showed up clearly. Men came to take him from the trap, Mowgli continued, but he broke his ropes, for he was strong, and went away till his wound was healed. Then came he, angry, by night, to the fields of those hunters. And I remember now that he had 3 sons. These things happened many, many rains ago, and very far away, among the fields of Burt-Por. What came to those fields at the next reaping, Hati? They were reaped by me and my 3 sons, said Hati. And to the ploughing that follows the reaping, said Mowgli. There was no ploughing, said Hati. And to the men that lived by the green crops on the ground, said Mowgli. They went away. And to the huts in which the men slept, we tore the roofs to pieces, and the jungle swallowed up the walls, said Hati. That was the sack of the fields of Burt-Por, which I and my 3 sons did. It was well done, Hati, with the white mark, but the second time it shall be done better, for the reason that there is a man to direct. Thou knowest the village of the man-pack that cast me out. They are idle, senseless, and cruel. When they are full fed, they would throw their own bread into the red flour. This I have seen. It is not well that they should live here any more. Let them run as the men ran from the fields of Burt-Por, till we have the rainwater for the only plough, and the noise of the rain on the thick leaves for the pattering of their spindles, till Bagheera and I lair in the house of the Brahmin, and the buck drink at the tank behind the temple. Drive in your peoples. Let the deer and the pig and the nilgai look to it. Let in the jungle, Hati. Thy war shall be our war, said Hati. We will let in the jungle. Hati and his 3 sons turned, each to one point of the compass, and went striding silently down the valleys. They went on and on for 2 days' march. That is to say, a long 60 miles through the jungle, and every step they took and every wave of their trunks was known and noted and talked over by Mang and Cheel and the monkey people and all the birds. Then they began to feed, and fed quietly for a week or so. Hutty and his sons are like Kaa the rock python. They never hurry until they have to. At the end of that time, a rumor went through the jungle that there was better food and water to be found in such and such a valley. The pig, who of course will go to the ends of the earth for a full meal, moved first by companies, scuffling over the rocks, and the deer followed, with the small wild foxes that live on the dead and dying of the herds, and the heavy-shouldered nilgai moved parallel with the deer, and the wild buffaloes of the swamps came after the nilgai. At the end of another 10 days or so, the situation was this. The deer and the pig and the nilgai were milling round and round in a circle of 8 or 10 miles radius, while the eaters of flesh skirmished round its edge. And the center of that circle was the village, and round the village the crops were ripening. And in the crops sat men on what they called machans, platforms like pigeon perches made of sticks at the top of 4 poles to scare away birds and other stealers. It was a dark night when Hutty and his 3 sons slipped down from the jungle and broke off the poles of the machans with their trunks. They fell as a snapped stalk of hemlock in bloom falls, and the men that tumbled from them heard the deep gurgling of the elephants in their ears. Then the vanguard of the armies of the deer broke down and flooded into the village grazing grounds and the ploughed fields, and the sharp-hoofed, rooting wild pig came with them, and what the deer left the pig spoiled, and from time to time an alarm of wolves would shake the herds, and they would rush to and fro desperately, treading down the young barley and cutting flat the banks of the irrigating canals. Before the dawn broke, the work was practically done. When the villagers looked in the morning, they saw their crops were lost, and that meant death if they did not get away, for they lived year in and year out as near to starvation as the jungle was near to them. When the buffaloes were sent to graze, the hungry brutes found that the deer had cleared the grazing grounds, and so wandered into the jungle and drifted off with their wild mates. And when twilight fell, the 3 or 4 ponies that belonged to the village lay in their stables with their heads beaten in. Only Bagheera could have given those blows. The villagers stayed on as long as any summer food was left to them, and they tried to gather nuts in the jungle, but shadows with glaring eyes watched them. And when they ran back afraid to their walls, on the tree trunks they had passed not 5 minutes before, the bark would be stripped and chilled with the stroke of some great taloned paw. The more they kept to their village, the bolder grew the wild things that gamboled and bellowed in the grazing grounds by the Waingunga. They had no time to patch and plaster the rear walls of the empty byres that backed onto the jungle. The wild pig trampled them down, and the knotty-rooted vines hurried after and threw their elbows over the new-won ground. The unmarried men ran away first and carried the news far and near that the village was doomed. Who could fight, they said, against the jungle? At last, the nightly trumpetings of Hutty and his 3 sons ceased to trouble them, for they had no more to be robbed of. The crop on the ground and the seed in the ground had been taken. The outlying fields were already losing their shape, and it was time to throw themselves on the charity of the English at Kaniwara. Native fashion, they delayed their departure from one day to another till the first rains caught them, and the unmended roofs let in a flood, and the grazing ground stood ankle-deep, and all life came on with a rush after the heat of the summer. Then they waded out, men, women, and children, through the blinding hot rain of the morning. A month later, the place was a dimpled mound, covered with soft green young stuff, and by the end of the rains, there was the roaring jungle in full blast on the spot that had been under the plough not 6 months before. The King's Ankus. One afternoon, Mowgli was sitting in the circle of Kaa's great coils. Kaa had very courteously packed himself under Mowgli's broad bare shoulders, so that the boy was really resting in a living armchair. 3 or 4 moons since, said Kaa, I hunted in cold lairs, which place thou hast not forgotten. And the thing I hunted ran into a burrow that led very far. I followed, and having killed, I slept. When I waked, I went forward, coming at last upon a white cobra, who spoke of things beyond my knowledge, and who showed me many things I had never seen before. New game? Was it good hunting? Said Mowgli eagerly. It was no game, and would have broken all my teeth. But the White Hood said that a man, he spoke as one that knew the breed, would give the breath under his ribs for only the sight of those things. We two spoke together under the earth, and I spoke of thee, naming thee as a man. Said the White Hood, and he is indeed as old as the jungle, it is long since I have seen a man. Let him come, and he shall see all these things, for the least of which very many men would die. That must be new game, said Mowgli. And yet the poisoned people do not tell us when game is afoot. They're an unfriendly folk. It is not game. I cannot say what it is. We will go there. I've never seen a White Hood, and I wish to see the other things. Did he kill them? They are all dead things. He says he is the keeper of them all. Oh, as a wolf stands above meat, he has taken to his own lair. Let's go. The two set off for Cold Lairs, the deserted city of which you may have heard. The monkey people were raiding in the jungle, and so Cold Lairs lay empty and silent in the moonlight. Kaa led up to the ruins of the Queen's pavilion that stood on the terrace, slipped over the rubbish, and dived down the half-choked staircase that went underground from the center of the pavilion. Mowgli followed on his hands and knees. They crawled a long distance down a sloping passage that turned and twisted several times, and at last came to where the roots of some great tree, growing 30 feet overhead, had forced out a solid stone in the wall. They crept through the gap, and found themselves in a large vault, whose domed roof had been also broken away by tree roots, so that a few streaks of light dropped down into the darkness. A safe lair, said Mowgli, rising to his feet, but over far to visit daily. But what is there to see? Am I nothing? Said a voice in the middle of the vault. And Mowgli saw something white move, till, little by little, there stood up the hugest cobra he had ever set eyes on, a creature nearly 8 feet long, and bleached, by being in darkness, to an old ivory white. His eyes were as red as rubies, and altogether he was most wonderful. Good hunting, said Mowgli. What of the city? Said the white cobra, without answering the greeting. What of the great walled city, the city of 100 elephants, and 20,000 horses, and cattle past counting, the city of the king of 20 kings? I grow deaf here, and it is long since I heard their war gongs. The jungle is above our heads, said Mowgli. I know only Hati and his sons among elephants. Bagheera has slain all the horses in one village. And what is a king? I told thee 4 moons ago, said Kaa softly to the cobra, that thy city is no longer. The great city of the forest can never pass. They builded it before my father's father came from the egg, and it shall endure when my son's sons are as white as I. Father of cobras, said Kaa, there is only the jungle here. Then who is he? Said the white cobra, sitting down before me, unafraid, not knowing the name of the king, talking our talk through a man's lips. Mowgli they call me, was the answer. I am of the jungle. The wolves are my people, and Kaa here is my brother. Father of cobras, who art thou? I am the warden of the king's treasure. Kurun Raja builded the stone above me in the days when my skin was dark, that I might teach death to those who came to steal. Then they let down the treasure through the stone, and I heard the song of the Brahmins, my masters. 5 times since I came here has the stone been lifted, but always to let down more and never to take away. There are no riches like these riches, the treasures of 100 kings. Thrice have men found their way here, but they never spoke till I came upon them groping in the dark, and then they cried, only a little time. The city is dead, ye say. Stoop down then, and take what ye will. Earth has no treasure like to these. Father of cobras, said Mowgli, I see nothing here to take away. By the gods of the sun and moon, it is the madness of death upon the boy, hissed the cobra. Look thou, and see what man has never seen before. Mowgli stared with puckered-up eyes round the vault, and then lifted up from the floor a handful of something that glittered. "Oh-ho," said he. "This is like the stuff they play with in the man-pack, only this is yellow and the other was brown." He let the gold pieces fall and moved forward. The floor of the vault was buried some 5 or 6 feet deep in coined gold and silver that had burst from the sacks it had been originally stored in, and in the long years the metal had packed and settled as sand packs at low tide. On it, and in it, and rising through it, as wrecks lift through the sand, were jeweled elephant howdahs of embossed silver, studded with plates of hammered gold. There were litters for carrying queens, framed and braced with silver and enamel. There were golden candlesticks hung with pierced emeralds. There were studded images, 5 feet high, of forgotten gods, silver with jeweled eyes. There were coats of mail, gold inlaid on steel, helmets, crested and beaded with pigeon's blood rubies, golden sacrificial bowls and ladles, incense burners, combs, and pots for perfume. There were armlets, finger rings, belts, and wooden boxes, trebly clamped with iron, from which the wood had fallen away in powder, showing piles of uncut sapphires, opals, rubies, diamonds, and emeralds. The white cobra was right. No mere money would begin to pay the value of this treasure, the sifted pickings of centuries of war, plunder, trade, and taxation. But Mowgli naturally did not understand what these things meant. The knives interested him a little, but they did not balance so well as his own, and so he dropped them. At last, he found something really fascinating, laid on the front of a howdah, half buried in the coins. It was a 3-foot ankus, or elephant goad, something like a small boat hook. The top was one round shining ruby, and 8 inches of the handle below it was studded with rough turquoises close together, giving a most satisfactory grip. Below them was a rim of jade with a flower pattern running round it. Only the leaves were emeralds, and the blossoms were rubies sunk in the cool green stone. The rest of the handle was a shaft of pure ivory, while the point, the spike and hook, was gold inlaid steel. "I do not understand," said Mowgli. "The things are hard and cold, and by no means good to eat. But this," he lifted the ankus, "I desire to take away, that I may see it in the sun. Thou sayest they are all thine? Wilt thou give it to me, and I will bring thee frogs to eat?" The white cobra fairly shook with evil delight. "Assuredly I will give it," he said. "All that is here I will give thee, till thou goest away." Kaa flung himself forward with blazing eyes. "Who bade me bring the man?" he hissed. "There was no talk of killing. How can I go to the jungle and say that I have led him to his death?" "Never man came here that went away with the breath under his ribs," cried the cobra. "I am the warden of the treasure of the king's city. Wait a while, Car of the Rocks, and see the boy run. There is room for great sport here. Life is good. Run to and fro a while and make sport, boy." Mowgli put his hand on Car's head gently. "The white thing has dealt with men of the Man Pack until now. He does not know me," he whispered. "He has asked for this hunting. Let him have it." Mowgli had been standing with the ankus held point down. He flung it crossways just behind the great snake's hood, pinning him to the floor. In a flash, Car's weight was upon the writhing body, paralyzing it from hood to tail. The red eyes burned, and the 6 spare inches of the head struck furiously right and left. "Kill," said Car, as Mowgli's hand went to his knife. "No," he said as he drew the blade. "I will never kill again save for food. But look you, Car." He caught the snake behind the hood, forcing the mouth open with the blade of the knife, and showed the terrible poison fangs of the upper jaw lying black and withered in the gum. The white cobra had outlived his poison, as a snake will. "It is dried up," said Mowgli, and motioning Car away, he picked up the ankus, setting the white cobra free. "The king's treasure needs a new warden," he said gravely. "I am ashamed. Kill me," hissed the white cobra. "There has been too much talk of killing. We will go now. I take the thorn-pointed thing because I have fought and worsted thee." "See, then, that the thing does not kill thee at last. It is death. Remember, it is death. There is enough in that thing to kill the men of all my city. Not long wilt thou hold it, jungle man, nor he who takes it from thee. They will kill and kill and kill for its sake. My strength is dried up, but the ankus will do my work. It is death." Mowgli crawled out through the hole into the passage again, and the last that he saw was the white cobra striking furiously with his harmless fangs at the stolid golden faces of the gods that lay on the floor. They were glad to get to the light of day once more, and when they were back in their own jungle and Mowgli made the ankus glitter in the morning light, he was almost as pleased as though he had found a bunch of new flowers to stick in his hair. "Oh, this is brighter than Bagheera's eyes," he said delightedly as he twirled the ruby. "I will show it to him. Good hunting." He danced off, flourishing the great ankus and stopping from time to time to admire it, till he came to that part of the jungle Bagheera chiefly used, and found him drinking after a heavy kill. Mowgli told him all his adventures from beginning to end, and Bagheera sniffed at the ankus between whiles. When Mowgli came to the white cobra's last words, the panther purred approvingly. "I was born in the king's cages at Udipore, and it is in my stomach that I know some little of man. Very many men would kill thrice in a night for the sake of that one big red stone alone." "But for what use was this thorn-pointed thing made?" asked Mowgli. "It was made by men to thrust into the head of the sons of Hati, so that the blood should pour out. I have seen the like in the streets of Udipore before our cages. That thing has tasted the blood of many such as Hati." "Always more blood when I come near, even to the things the Man Pack have made," said Mowgli disgustedly. "If I had known this, I would not have taken it. First it was Meswar's blood on the thongs, and now it's Hati's. I will use it no more. Look!" The ankus flew sparkling, and buried itself point down 30 yards away between the trees. "So my hands are clean of death," said Mowgli, rubbing his palms on the fresh, moist earth. "Death or life, I'm going to sleep." "I too, little brother," said Bagheera. "I cannot hunt all night and howl all day." Bagheera went off to a hunting lair that he knew, about 2 miles off. Mowgli made an easy way for himself up a convenient tree, knotted 3 or 4 creepers together, and in less time than it takes to tell, was swinging in a hammock 50 feet above the ground. When he waked, it was twilight once more. "I will look at the thing once more," he said, and slid down a creeper to the earth, but Bagheera was before him. Mowgli could hear him snuffing in the half-light. "Where is the thorn-pointed thing?" cried Mowgli.
"A man has taken it. Here is the trail."
"Now we shall see whether the white cobra spoke truth. If the pointed thing is death, that man will die. Let us follow." They buckled down to the trail, and after a while Mowgli asked, "Think you the pointed thing will turn in the man's hand and kill him?"
"We shall see when we find," said Bagheera, trotting with his head low.
"Now he runs swiftly," said Mowgli. "The toes are spread apart." They went over some wet ground. "Now why does he turn aside here?"
"Wait," said Bagheera, and flung himself forward with one superb bound as far as ever he could. "Here comes another trail to meet him. It is a smaller foot, the second trail, and the toes turn inward." Mowgli ran up and looked.
"It is the foot of a hunter," he said. "Look, here he dragged his bow on the grass. That is why the first trail turned aside so quickly. Big Foot hid from Little Foot." They raced on another half-mile, always keeping about the same distance, till Mowgli, whose head was not so close to the ground as Bagheera's, cried, "They have met! Look, here stood Littlefoot with his knee on a rock, and yonder is Big Foot indeed." Not 10 yards in front of them, stretched across a pile of broken rocks, lay the body of a villager of the district, a long, small feathered arrow through his back and breast. "Was the white cobra so old and so mad, little brother?" said Bagheera gently. "Here is one death, at least." "Follow on. But where is the drinker of elephant's blood, the red-eyed thorn?" "Littlefoot has it, perhaps." The single trail of a light man who'd been running quickly and bearing a burden on his left shoulder held on round a long, low spur of dried grass, where each footfall seemed, to the sharp eyes of the trackers, marked in hot iron. Neither spoke till the trail ran up to the ashes of a campfire hidden in a ravine. "Again," said Bagheera, checking as though he'd been turned into stone. The body of the little wizened hunter lay with its feet in the ashes, and Bagheera looked inquiringly at Mowgli. "That was done with a bamboo," said the boy, after one glance. 1, 2, 3, 4 tracks. 4 tracks of men with shod feet. Now, what evil had the little woodman done to them? See, they talked together, all 5, standing up, before they killed him. No more was said for fully an hour, as they worked up the broad trail of the 4 men with shod feet. It was clear, hot daylight now, and Bagheera said, "I smell smoke." "Men are always more ready to eat than to run," Mowgli answered, trotting in and out between the low scrub bushes of the new jungle they were exploring. Bagheera, a little to his left, made an indescribable noise in his throat. "Here is one that has done with feeding," said he. A tumbled bundle of grey-coloured clothes lay under a bush, and round it was some spilt flour. "That was done by the bamboo again," said Mowgli. "See, that white dust is what men eat. They have taken the kill from this one, he carried their food, and given him for a kill to Cheel the kite." "It is the third," said Bagheera. They had not gone half a mile farther when they heard Ko the Crow singing the death song in the top of a tamarisk under whose shade 3 men were lying. A half-dead fire smoked in the center of the circle under an iron plate which held a blackened and burned cake of unleavened bread. Close to the fire, and blazing in the sunshine, lay the ruby and turquoise ankus. "The thing works quickly. All ends here," said Bagheera. "How did these die, Mowgli? There is no mark on any." Mowgli sniffed the smoke that came up from the fire, broke off a morsel of the blackened bread, tasted it, and spat it out again. "Apple of death," he coughed. The first must have made it ready in the food for these, who killed him, having first killed the hunter. Apple of death is what the jungle call thorn apple, or datura, the readiest poison in all India.
What now? Said the panther. Must thou and I kill each other for yonder red-eyed slayer? Between us two it can do no wrong, for we do not desire what men desire. If it be left here, it will assuredly continue to kill men one after another, as fast as nuts fall in a high wind. I have no love for men, but even I would not have them die 6 in a night. This," he handled the ankus gingerly, "goes back to the father of cobras."
2 nights later, as the white cobra sat mourning in the darkness of the vault, ashamed and robbed and alone, the turquoise ankus whirled through the hole in the wall and clashed on the floor of golden coins. "Father of cobras," said Mowgli, "get thee a young and ripe one of thine own people to help thee guard the king's treasure, so that no man may come away alive any more."
"Ah, it returns then. I said the thing was death. How comes it that thou art still alive?" the old cobra mumbled, twining lovingly round the ankus.
"By the bull that bought me, I do not know. That thing has killed 6 times in a night. Let him go out no more." Red Dog. In the course of time, Father and Mother Wolf died, and Mowgli rolled a big boulder against the mouth of their cave and cried the death song over them. Baloo grew very old and stiff, and even Bagheera was a shade slower on the kill than he had been. Akela turned from grey to milky white with pure age. His ribs stuck out, and he walked as though he had been made of wood, and Mowgli killed for him. But the young wolves, the children of the disbanded Seoni pack, throve and increased, and when there were about 40 of them, Akela told them that they ought to gather themselves together and follow the law, and run under one head, as befitted the free people. This was not a question in which Mowgli concerned himself, but when Phao, son of Fiona, his father was the great tracker in the days of Akela's headship, fought his way to the leadership of the pack according to the jungle law, and the old calls and songs began to ring under the stars once more, Mowgli came to the council rock for memory's sake. When he chose to speak, the pack waited till he had finished, and he sat at Akela's side on the rock above Phao. One twilight, when he was trotting leisurely across the ranges to give Akela the half of a buck that he'd killed, while the 4 jogged behind him, Mowgli heard a cry that had never been heard since the bad days of Shere Khan. It was what they call in the jungle the fial.